Well, we'll let some more people join before we get started. All right. Well, we can sort of get started now. We have a pretty good crowd so far, and I'm sure that more will join, but I think that will work. So welcome everyone to this. I think this is the sharing session number 6. I believe the last one we held was in early summer, providing some updates on the source permitting and the online application process. So today, the focus will be, let's see here if I can get my screen. 1 second. The slide's not responding. Well, 1 second here. The slides are stuck. Interesting. Well, what I was going to say while I figure out why the PowerPoint presentation is not working was basically just we could start with some introductions. I don't know if there are any new people on this call that have not been part of these sharing sessions in the past, but if you have not been here before and would like to introduce yourself, we would welcome anyone to speak up and introduce themselves. Well, I'll let people think about that. I'll sort out the PowerPoint presentation. There we go. All right, I think it's working now. All right, since I'm not hearing anyone speak up, I just want to make sure that I think last time we had the sharing session, I think we introduced everyone on our end, because at that point in time we had welcomed Doug as a new division engineer. Doug, is that correct? You introduced yourself last time, right?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Great. And Sienna as well. Did you introduce yourself last time?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right. Nadine, I think you also made a presentation, an introduction last time.
I think I did. There were many introductions
There
earlier.
were many introductions, a lot of new people on the team, yeah. So I guess a quick update before we get going with the session today. Willie Nickerson, engineering section supervisor, is out for the time being. And so if any of you have any questions that would typically go to Willie, send them to me, or if it's a project specific question, obviously send it to the engineer that has been assigned the project. But that's sort of the process until Willie is back, and we'll let everyone know. And you'll also see it if you email him. There'll be a bounce back and a request to send the email to me. So just FYI, that's sort of the process for now. So besides that, I think I also just want to mention these sharing sessions. This is the 6th sharing session we're doing. Obviously, the hope for these sessions are to create a space where everyone can bring up topics and bring up questions that are for this group to discuss and talk about. So far, I think it's been primarily us bringing up topics, and we'll keep doing that until there are other people that want to share something. But I just want to reiterate that this is a space for everyone to bring up any questions or topics or trainings that they've received that they would like to share with this group. So please keep that in mind, and let Sienna, who's sort of the person sending out the agenda items, let Sienna know if you have a topic for the next one, and we can make sure to add that to the agenda. So other than that, for today, we want to talk about what we're doing as a section to develop public guidance documents. We want to talk a little bit about the general water main construction permit and the auditing process that will happen. We have some updates on the water supply rule revisions. Then we have, we want to share a new tool we've developed it's called the Drinking Water Public Library. And then we are going to talk about a new PFAS treatment efficacy study that we are starting up, as well as an EPA PFAS pilot program that we are working with EPA on. And then finally, what trainings the division has taken to sort of educate ourselves on technical topics and how to be better at doing our jobs. And we would love to hear what this group are doing in a similar fashion to and share that if you have good ideas for what we should do. And then hopefully there's some time in the end for just a free discussion, whatever people would like to talk about. And then just a wrap up with what the next session should be and when it should be. So with that, I'm gonna pass it on to, and now the presentation is stuck again. That's an interesting process here. I think, Nathan, it's you. So let me just, I'll stop sharing again.
It is me next. So on the topic of public guidance documents, we are working to create more public-facing guidance documents, with the intent being to provide more information for common issues that come up in general permit applications, although this would also be relevant to individual construction permits as well. The goal is to write these in such a way that they'll provide pre-approval for relevant sections of the water supply rule, such as 8.6.4 for separation distances between water and storm sewer, in the specific circumstances where pre-approval is possible. I've listed what we're currently working on this slide, but there's flexibility here. So if there's something that keeps coming up in your projects, let me know and we can add to the list. That's all I had on that one.
Great. Any questions? All right. Let's see if the slides. No, this is maybe someone else should do this slide. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna stop sharing again.
I'm just pulling it up in case it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it's not really doing much.
While you're getting that up, I just had a question. If we think of other things we think a guidance document would help with, who's the right person to direct that to?
That should probably go to Scylla.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, Sienna, if you can open it up and share it, I don't know, it's not responding at all, PowerPoint right now.
Yeah, let me know if it stops working on your end, but it seems to be fine here.
Okay, great.
So if we're moving on from the guidance document topic.
Oh,
are we
wait,
done?
Sienna, wait. So who asked the question about who direct questions to?
Petra Griffin.
Okay, great. Yeah, Patrick, send them my way. Obviously, when Willie's back, if it's engineering specific, I would send it to Willie. But for the time being, send it to me. And the same thing on the water resources side of things. So if there are things for the hydrogeologist that when you work through a source permit, for example, that would be helpful, let me know. So for the time being, send them all my way.
Great, thank you.
All right. So February 2022, we launched our first iteration of the general construction permit for water main work. And we decided just to assess how well this general permit is working, how many issues you guys run into, or just assess if it's being effectively used the way we intended. So next spring, starting in February, we'll be looking at the first 20 general construction permits that have gone out and been completed, the permit will have expired and we expect they're completed. And we'll be asking you for closeout documents for those projects just so we can see if everything is going smoothly, figure out where we need to improve our general permit, or if there's any questions that come up that we can help you guys with to make the process smoother. So we'll just reach out to the engineers who worked on those first 20 projects. We'll conduct a closeout review just like we do with individual permits. We welcome any feedback regarding the process that you guys have for us. Is there anything else I need to mention? I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just a check-in to see how it's going. No. Okay. Yeah, if you have questions about this, feel free to send me an email, and I can explain a little bit more about the process. But if we're ready to move on.
Thank you. So some updates on the water supply rule and the timeline. So quickly, the division submitted revisions to the water supply rule for public comments on August 18th. And comments were received and implemented. And now it's open for another round of comments until December 1st. So Friday at 5 o'clock. So if any of you are interested, check out that link in the slide here and look at the new proposed language. And if you have any comments, submit them before 5 o'clock. So then the idea is we'll review those next rounds of comments and assess if more edits are needed, draft a responsiveness summary to those that provided a comment. And then the hope is that late 2023 we'll file with LCAR and then have the rule finalized in early 2024. So next slide, Sienna. So some of the changes, just so that you're aware of where in the rule we had some edits. So the first piece of edits were in the definitions. So this was just to assist with EPA mandated updates. And then subchapter 3 and 4 had some edits made as well. So these were administrative updates, basically reflecting there was some missing language around TNCs. So we just made sure that source and construction permits were associated with all non-community systems, not just NTNCs. Section 6.6 was the revised total call form rule. So this was an EPA rule that came out in 2016. And since we're a primacy agency, we needed to implement all of that, all of those rule updates into the water supply rule. So that's what's listed under section 6.6. And then section 6.18, PFAS MCL language update. So that's referring to the letter of violation that's being sent out to water systems when they have an exceedance of PFAS. So basically, the water supply rule had some language listing that they would continue being in violation of the rule for a full year after implementing treatment. So the new language will say, will basically be similar to the do not drink, lifting of do not drink. So say if you install treatment and the follow-up sampling shows that it's working, then you're no longer in violation of the rule. So that language was updated. Next slide. So here, subchapter 12, operator certification, went through quite some revisions. People in this subchapter, there were quite there were a lot of comments back to the division, and those comments were then were implemented one way or another. And then we have Appendix A, 3.3.1.2 and 11.4.0, table A11-1. Those changes were associated with source isolation zones. So basically updating the water supply rule so that the isolation distances are consistent with the WW rules, and to protect the proper protection of the zone 1 and 2 specifically. And then we have Appendix A, 4.11, so that's GAC filtration. So that section was updated to reflect changes in industry standards. And I think most notably for public community water systems, we changed the language to say at least 2 filter trains shall be provided instead of 3. And then finally, there were other changes such as grammar and formatting, and then gendered language and other changes were made. But I would propose anyone who's interested in taking a look at it to go to the website where it's posted. There's both sort of an overview of all of these changes that were made, and you can find the updated language with track change, so you can see specifically what those changes were. And again, if you're interested, provide comments by Friday at 5 o'clock. But hopefully we can get this this finalized and have the new language out in the water supply rule by early 2024. That's the hope. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? Oh, wait, I see something in the chat. So I guess these are questions I didn't notice before. So there's a question: will forms have unique location that can be potentially GIS mappable? So what was that a question referring to? That must have been from the very early slides.
Yeah, we can move on, Sula.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about all the stack of forms that you're going to talk about later.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we can pick that back up. And I see you, Wayne, saying general permit has been a great addition and helped to move these types of projects forward much more quickly and efficiently. Thank you for sharing that. We're happy to hear that kind of feedback. So that was the goal. So I'm glad it's working out for everyone. All right. If there are no questions about the proposed changes to the rule, then we can move to the next one. So this is a tool that was developed and is available on our website, and I added the link here as well. So this is a copy, this Drinking Water Public Library is a copy of our internal archive, except for a few documents that contain personal or financial information. So they have been left out. And so whenever you have a new project you're working on, then we would propose that you go in here and basically search this database for all relevant information. A note to be made, it should be pretty robust following August 2011, but before that there might be some records and documents not present due to Irene. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this library and searching for data. And if there are things that you can't find, but that may be available, you can still do a records request, as you can see in the note here, that's from the website. So more information can be gathered, but really it is a true copy of our internal archive. So rather than asking us for the data, we would send you here for yourself to go through and find the data. And then it's really just to keep personal and financial information not available for everyone to see. So we hope that this is going to be a helpful tool for everyone. And if you again, it's a new thing. If you have any questions or any comments or ideas for how to improve it, let us know, and we can talk to our database guru and see what he can do to update it. But hopefully, it should be pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, thank you, Allison, for adding the link to the chat. Any questions on this public library? Has anyone used it yet? Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I've used it. I think it's certainly a great tool, and will hopefully save you guys getting a bunch of emails from us asking for a bunch of records. So definitely think it's a great tool to add, and hopefully it will eliminate some emails that you're getting from us asking for stuff like that. Generally been able to find everything fairly easily.
Okay, that's great to hear. Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely the goal, and if you end up emailing us, you may get an email back saying, "Hey, try this library first." And if you still can't find it, then we can maybe help you. So it is definitely intended for us to save a little bit of time, and for you all to have a place to as a first stop shop for finding information about water systems. So that's good to hear. All right. Next slide.
Okay. So I'm going to give an update on some of the PFAS work that's going on. We've recently put together a PFAS treatment efficacy study. The intent of this study is to help us understand PFAS treatment requirements and evaluate how to optimally design treatment for low levels of PFAS at drinking water systems. So in March 2023, the EPA released a draft proposal for a national primary drinking water regulation for PFAS. Now, this proposed MCL is different than Vermont's current approach in the water supply rule and include levels lower than Vermont's current standard. So the proposed MCL takes an individual compound-specific approach where PFOA and PFOS would have an MCL of 4 parts per trillion, and then 4 additional PFAS compounds regulated as a hazard index. So under this proposed federal regulation, 25 additional public water systems are expected to exceed the MCL and will be then required to treat for PFAS or have an alternative source that does not have PFAS. So as part of this study, we would be evaluating the effectiveness of GAC filtration, considering water quality, pretreatment, filter configuration, and operation. And the data from this study would be used to understand GAC media lifespan and operational considerations. So this would allow us to provide useful information to other impacted water systems on filter media changeout and inform future changes to the water supply rule regarding treatment design. The study would be conducted on 4 water systems with existing PFAS treatment and would run anywhere between 2 to 5 years. And although the list of participating systems is still in the works, the idea is to evaluate water systems that meet the total empty bed contact time as required by the rule, and then water systems that operate at a reduced empty bed contact time. So I guess next slide, Sienna, please. So our study design involves evaluating GAC media lifespan by monitoring PFAS breakthrough at midpoint and water quality parameters that could impact media performance. We would also track head loss between lead and lag filters, evaluate water usage, bed volumes treated, and pretreatment. So by monitoring PFAS breakthrough at midpoint, instead of following a set media changeout schedule, the cost of media replacement can be postponed, resulting in an overall cost savings for the participating water system. So as an update, we recently put out a request for proposal, or RFP, to set up a contract with a lab that would be doing the analyses for the samples associated with this study. And we are on track to have that contract in place by the end of December and hope to start collecting the first round of samples at these water systems by January 2024. So stay tuned for that. And then next slide. In addition to our study, the US EPA is also conducting a similar technical assistance project for emerging contaminants in drinking water, with a focus on PFAS. And this is an EPA fully funded in-depth evaluation of the performance and operation of PFAS treatment systems. And the objective of their study is to identify and implement sustainable and cost-effective PFAS treatment technologies, focusing on small and disadvantaged water systems. They will be looking at approximately 50 water systems nationwide and would collect and evaluate long-term PFAS treatment performance data, as well as cost data. And with that, they will develop tools like performance and cost models and incorporate that into the EPA's drinking water treatability database. And they would also create best practice guides and make it readily available to the public. Some of the tasks associated with this technical assistance project are to evaluate a water system's water quality and current or future treatment design scheme. They would conduct sampling for anywhere between 6 months to a year or more, depending on whether or not they're running a full scale or a pilot system. And the EPA would be available as a technical resource to the water system. They have expressed interest in a few small water systems in Vermont that currently do not have PFAS treatment installed yet. So we are looking forward to working with them through this process. So lots of things underway regarding PFAS. Are there any questions regarding both our PFAS treatment efficacy study and the EPA's technical assistance project? I see a hand went up.
So I had just, well, 2 questions. Does the state study include analyzing the media after swap out, and determining whether we're throwing out good media based on the current process of when we switch over based on breakthrough?
Not to analyze after it. What we have in the initial design is to monitor for PFAS at midpoint, along with other water quality parameters that could affect media performance. We haven't had we haven't thought of analyzing after media swap out, not unless Sela.
Well, so the moment we have a breakthrough, we would sample at midpoint, but also at entry point to sort of understand how that breakthrough impacts well, clearly we would know the lead, but also the lag filter. At that point in time, it's really up to the water system to decide how they want to manage the change out process. If they want to continue going currently with a 20 parts per trillion MCL, they could continue with the lead lag configuration, but they would then need to monitor more frequently at the entry point to ensure that they don't end up exceeding the 20 parts per trillion, because that would push them into a do not drink. So at that point in time, we would understand at midpoint, the breakthrough, we would understand how the lag filter perform, what if there is a breakthrough of the lag filter as well. And then it will be a conversation with the water system to understand how they want to proceed from then on, whether that means changing them out, switching lead lag and replacing one. Everything may change once EPA's new MCL comes out. If we end up with a 4 parts per trillion MCL, that leaves a lot less wiggle room to continue with a lead lag configuration. Craig, does that somewhat answer your question, or do you have some ideas?
No, I think it does. It's just overall concern that we're with the current way the policy is that a breakthrough means we throw out the media. And I think there's an opportunity to see if we are actually throwing out good media or we're getting breakthrough due to things like edge effect on the vessels and things like that.
We don't have a policy that requires the water system to throw out the media once there's breakthrough. Oh, Allison, am I?
I think there may have been a policy in place when in the transfer from waste management to drinking water, in that early stages of establishing design standards and an MCL. I believe there was a policy like that. I wasn't as involved at that stage, but it's ringing bell, and maybe Craig is more familiar with it based on OCE's early design work with PFAS treatment. But Craig, I would be interested in that thought more. Because of how many systems have these vessels that can be removed, that might, for change out, that might make GAC sampling the media itself a little easier than those that fluidize the media and remove it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure practically how that would work if we tried to sample that media.
No, that's fair. I was just curious if it was being considered. And then I guess the other question was related to the EPA study and specifically what they mean by small, because their definition of small is basically every system in Vermont outside of, a handful. So is it small for EPA or small for Vermont?
Right. No, and that's a good question. And it did come up in earlier conversations with them. And what we have found is that with this study, they have certain criteria that need to be met, but we've found that there's a lot of flexibility that's built into this. So as small as it is in reference to Vermont water systems, we're talking about some small NTNCs and things like that they're interested in.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions on this topic? Yep, Patrick.
It just raises the question for me. I haven't read through the revised water supply rule, but it sounds like empty bed contact time is not changing in there. So will these results possibly allow for, if you're getting good results out of the reduced empty bed contact time systems, would there be an opportunity in the future to reduce that in the rule to become more the standard instead of the variance? Does that make sense?
100%. I'm waiting to see if Nadine want to answer, or otherwise I can answer.
Maybe you could take this one, Sela.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely part of what we're looking at, is to understand those that have those. We have Warren and Grafton that were designed pre our rule, and they have a reduced empty bed contact time that we're interested in looking at and seeing how they're performing compared to those that are meeting the 10 minutes per filter. So that's part of what we're looking at. Definitely, yeah. I think it's an interesting conversation, and the more you dive into this, the more questions arise, right? Because when you ask people that are designing these systems outside of Vermont, they would say, well, there's funding available to design and implement these systems. There's not funding to operate them, so why would you design them smaller and defer that cost to the operations of them, if you can design it to the standards, the industry standards as they are right now. And that's why we're looking at other parameters like, but if that means the filters are working for so long that other things start interfering with their efficiency, or then maybe there is a reason. So there's a lot of those questions are some we're trying to look at. But again, as you're hearing this and thinking about it, if you have thoughts on it, questions that you get that this could help solve, send them my way or Nadine's way, and we can sort of roll it into the study if possible. Any idea how many treatment systems currently in use that have experienced a breakthrough? Well, we have, I think we have a couple that have experienced breakthrough at this point in time. Yeah, are you, why are you asking that question? I'm curious why you're asking that question.
I guess I'm asking the question because one of those is mine. And I've got 3 systems up in Killington, all about 500 feet from each other, all set up the exact same way with the exact same media. And the one that was installed last is the one that's installed that has breakthroughs. So I guess I'm concerned that there's a lot of variability in these systems as to what may cause that, and that may impede the study a little bit in saying that, we're going to be not chasing ghosts necessarily, but I literally have 3 of the exact same systems within 1,000 feet of each other. 2 are working fine and 1 has breakthrough in it. And it's a mystery to me. Water quality is generally the same. It's certainly not exactly the same, but generally the same. So I guess I'd be curious to know exactly what water quality parameters you guys are considering as part of the monitoring of all of this.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that's part of what we're trying to see. I think what we are finding in literature is that TOC has a major impact on the performance of GAC media. So making sure that we request TOC sampling prior to design of these systems. is sort of a major component. And then as part of the study, we're going to be collecting sort of a full suite of samples to see how other parameters may impact it. But really, when you're looking through the literature, TOC is the main sort of contributor to reducing the performance of the GAC media. And then the other question that's coming up also when we review literature is that there's a bunch of different GAC media out there, and that they all perform differently. So bituminous coal performs better than non-bituminous, and then you also have various. So one of the things we're looking at is Calvin Carbon has a media out. They have an F400 and an F600. Where we see the F400 performing better than the F600, for example, and that's also the one that Calvin Carbon would recommend to be used. So just looking at what kind of media was installed, what is the TOC, and as well as all the other parameters would be part of this study. And you're right, Chasing Ghost might be, we're doing 4 systems. So it's not like we can, this is not a statistical analysis. We won't be able to say with 95% confidence that this is what it will look like in the future. But it will maybe give us some ideas of at least what to look for and things to consider when designing these systems.
Yeah, so the intent is to basically get a list of screening parameters or add to the screening parameters for basis of the design.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right. I think we can go to the next topic.
So here's a list of some of the recent trainings that at least one of us has attended recently, and just some points I wanted to bring up on these. So the UCMR 5 is a list of compounds that the EPA does not currently regulate but is monitoring, and will be monitoring through 2025, I think. The current list, or the list on the UCMR 5, is 29 currently unregulated PFAS compounds and lithium. Past UCMR lists have included some of the currently regulated PFAS compounds and manganese. So the compounds on that list might be worth paying attention to, as they might pop up again in a few years. Regarding the distribution system model calibration and pressure pipes, we have a draft hydraulic evaluation guidance document that is sometimes relevant to some projects. As with the public guidance documents that I talked about before, this is in draft form. So if you have suggestions or things you want to say about it, let us know. And then for the PFAS ones, we just spent quite a bit of time talking about PFAS, so I'm not going to dwell on these, but I would like to reiterate that the understanding of treatment and the interactions with co-contaminants is currently ongoing and is something that a lot of people are looking into from a lot of different directions. So the more information that you provide in your applications related to that, to design, the better for us. That's all I had to say on that.
Yeah, so Sienna, before you go, before you skip to this one, I am curious to hear if there's anyone from the group that would share any trainings they've received within sort of the last year that they would recommend to us and to everyone on this call. It's always nice to hear of other interesting topics or trainings that would be valuable.
I'll also send out a follow-up email, maybe a survey, and feel free to write in answers at that point if you can't think of them off the top of your head.
That's great. Thank you, Sienna. All right, in that case, you can skip to the next one. So, unless there are any questions or a topic that someone want to bring up, we have 15 more minutes. I know this slide says next session, but I should have said this session. If there are any topics that we should talk about right now, we have some time. Yep, great.
Any thoughts from the division on when they're going to do a more significant rule right with the water supply rule, and whether or not generating a list of things that should be looked at, reviewed, or added to the water supply rule when it goes through a more major rewrite? One that comes to mind is how to calculate contact volume on a tank. You know, that's one that every few years goes through oh, well, this is how we want it done now sort of thing, instead of it actually being in the rules. So I guess, A, is there a timeline on when that might actually start in earnest? And is there any value in starting to generate a list of what some of those topics or items might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have any topics, any thoughts on sections that could use some more information, please send them our way. You can send them to me. This process is ongoing, I can say. The idea was really that this rewrite was going to be comprehensive, and quickly it appeared that it was not possible within the time frame that was needed to, at a minimum, get the revised total coliform rule language into the rule, because that was sort of a requirement from EPA. And that's why it ended up being non-comprehensive and just like the topics that are really critical and that could be implemented on a quicker time frame. So the process is ongoing. And the conversations are happening, and the list of things that we want to change in the rule are being generated. But I think that's all I can say at this point in time in terms of a potential time frame. I don't think it's going to happen over the next year. Mostly because there's a lot going on right now between lead service line replacement or assessments, the revised lead and copper rule, the PFAS rule, and then all the federal funding coming in has sort of all been part of stopping the sort of the comprehensive revisions process a little bit. So it's a non-answer. I'm giving you a non-answer here, but it's the best answer I have, unfortunately. And we can definitely keep you all posted on the process. But I will say, if you have any topics where you're like, this is a reoccurring question that we deal with that would be beneficial to have in the rule or as a policy, send them to me, and I can add them to our list. And at least, as Nathan mentioned earlier, we can work on maybe developing some policies in the meantime on how to do the various things. So sorry for that non-answer.
No, it was an answer. It may not have been one I liked, but I'm not surprised by it either. So you're not telling me anything new necessarily there. I guess I will throw out, and I've I've said this a couple different times in different venues, but any conversations internally about turning the rule more into a technical document for sewer and water, and leaving the rule. I see it in a similar vein to what they've done with stormwater, where the management or the stormwater management document can be updated a little bit easier than the actual rule. There may be some efficiency there in having more of a technical document that's referenced in all of the various water and sewer related rules, and have it be a technical document that does not necessarily have to go through the same process as a quote unquote rule revision.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a helpful comment. We'll definitely, I'll bring that up, and see if that's something the division, would like to consider. Yeah, thank you.
And it won't be the first time Brian's heard that from me, so he won't be surprised.
All right, I will also keep that in mind. Thank you. I see something in the chat. Do you want to share what you're putting in the chat?
For those that are not familiar, ITRC is an interstate resource where all the different agencies across the country share technical information and policy information, and you might find some interesting information there for your own use, whichever side of the table you're on. So I just wanted to share that as a link in case you wanted to just navigate through there. There's a lot of free courses and a lot of good resources on PFAS.
All right, thank you for sharing that. One thing that I'm remembering now to share with everyone, and you may all know this, but there is now an ANR online application process for ESA submissions. So if you're submitting an ESA, do it in the ANR online form, and that way it will. Oh, that's great, Amy. Thank you. You're sharing the link. So Amy just shared the link to where to submit the ESA. So in case you missed it, it's no longer an email to me or Willie or Amy or whoever else you've been emailing. It's on ANR online. And then we have a process for assigning an engineer when we review them or when we receive them. Not the same as the loan application, which is this one. So Amy's just, yep. Thank you, Amy, for making that clear.
So will that include letting the consultants know who's actually reviewing the ESAs once they've been assigned?
So the system doesn't allow that. So the way it works is basically you submit an ESA and then currently it's me, it would have been Willie, would have gotten an email notification saying there's an ESA in the submission database. Then I get it, I push it into our database, and then I will assign out an engineer. So we meet every Tuesday and Thursday. And then basically based on the workload, it will be, hey, we received this ESA. Let's say, Allison, it's assigned to you, and then Allison will review it and then send the comments back. So it's not that there's no functionality in the system to let you know that I've assigned it to Allison. But we try to review these on a sort of as short of a time frame as possible. And so you'll get the email back from Allison, and then you know that Allison is the reviewer, or Nathan, or Sienna, or Doug. Does that answer the question?
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. Amy?
So I'll just jump in. Craig, I don't know what it looks like from the applicant side. Sometimes when things are changed in A&R Online, it will it'll update a status. I don't know if that changes when a different reviewer is assigned. It might just do the initial assignment, like when it goes to CELA. So there is a history for A&R Online, but I don't know how detailed it gets or if it says anything about who it's assigned to. It might show up there, but I don't know. The ESA interface was designed a little bit more for clean water than for drinking water. So for drinking water, it is being used to collect the documents, and that way, I mean, it's good right now because CELA can access things without having to try and get in touch with Willie for them because it's not going in individual email. But the approval process in terms of getting an email approval letter will still be the same for drinking water as it has been. It's just mostly a collection, and then you have a timestamp of when it's been submitted to. And all of this will change in our new database next year. But that's what we have for now.
Thank you, Amy. All right. 5 minutes left. Any topics, any suggestions for anything we want to discuss next sharing session? Anyone have any thoughts on that? While you think about that, also think about, should we do it in person? I think it would be a really nice opportunity to meet a lot of the people that are on this call. But I know that maybe not everyone loves the in-person and likes this sort of virtual environment better. But I'd love to hear if there would be an interest in having one of these sharing sessions be in person. See a thumbs up. I don't know who's sending it, but I saw it. I see another one. I mean, that's enough for me to think that in-person sharing session is a good idea. So maybe we'll set that up.
Maybe a hybrid one. I was trying to create a poll, but I don't know how to do that. So I will send that out in the follow-up as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. Does that make sense? A hybrid one where some are in person and some are virtual? I see another thumbs up. Okay, we'll make that happen. Yeah. Any topics? Anyone has anything? Nothing. We know everyone knows everything. That's great. I'm sure we can think of something, and maybe if we don't think of anything, we'll have sort of an in-person session where we can have it a little bit more free form conversation, which that in-person meeting option sometimes allows for a little bit better than this virtual setting. But I think we can probably come up with some topics. Yeah, great.
Selfishly, I did see you guys were looking at a guidance document for instantaneous peak demand. I know that TAC is also discussing that with a subcommittee. So I think maybe some overlap in that discussion as to how you guys are looking at that versus how TAC may be looking at that probably is a worthwhile discussion. And to get a preview of what that guidance document may end up looking like.
Yep, that's a great idea. We'll put that on the list. I mean, it may, we can definitely add it as a topic, and then it may just be like this is how far we've gotten, and let's talk about where we should take it further, how we should take it further, and instead of waiting until we have something in complete form, that might be the way to do it, because Yeah,
I think that makes sense, because what I would hate to see is you guys do something and then the TAC do something else, and then we're in conflict with things that should be not in conflict, as far as something like instantaneous peak demand and how that's calculated or dealt with in a particular situation.
yeah, that makes sense. I do hope their intention is really for that conflict not to happen, especially because I'm on TAC. Willie has been part of the subcommittee to talk about instantaneous peak demand with Bruce Douglas and others, specifically to make sure that we don't communicate, that we don't end up with two versions of the same thing. So hopefully that is, the end result, but it's always good to be reminded along the way.
I guess along that lines too, then I'd also be curious to see the isolation, or talk through the isolation, horizontal isolation discussion, and what that document may end up looking like, just based on what's been accepted previously to what you guys are actually going to put in writing, from a guidance document standpoint.
When you say guidance document, so we made the rule revisions, is that what you're referring to, or?
I guess I meant at the beginning, as one of the first slides that you were sharing about, what the one Nathan was sharing.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yep, I see different isolation distance. Okay, that's great. We can definitely add that as well. Okay, great. Well, we are past 2:00, but thank you everyone for another great sharing session. As I said, feel free to send Tiana any topics for the next one. We've made note of the ones, Craig, you came up with now. And then hopefully we'll see some of you in person and the rest of you on the screen for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.